Hello and welcome to part 2 of the People's Lawyer series on combating medical tyranny out and about on the streets of Insanity UK and elsewhere, if you are elsewhere. So today we're looking at how to deal with the situation in which you are required, in inverted commas, to wear a mask for work or when you're traveling. In the previous edition, part 1, we looked at having to wear a mask or being expected to wear a mask to enter a shop or a cafe. It's a little bit more involved when we're at work or when we're traveling, because we now have time to do something in writing. So we're going beyond oral self-defense now. We're going into the realm of written self-defense. The first thing to note, above all, is that when you're offered anything by a corporation, and that will be your company or the airline, or maybe train line, they're making a corporate offer to contract with you. So the best defense for that is a letter of conditional acceptance. You're not refusing, but you're not accepting except upon strict conditions. So let's have a brief look at how that might work. What it does, it places the burden of proof on your employer or service provider to show good cause for their requirement for you to comply and irrefutable evidence that no harm will be caused. So you could use a phrase like, I shall agree to comply with your requirement on strict condition that you provide conclusive and independent evidence upon the following. And I'm going to go through a list which we will look at in more detail when we look at a template of a letter that you could write. So what you should include is evidence upon independent health and safety risk evaluation, equality impact assessment, particularly for a protected characteristic such as personal belief, which is what we looked at last time in part 1, which is section 13 of the Equality Act. Victimizing service user, well, that would be for the airline, section 29 of the Equality Act 2010. Now, obviously, if it's your employer, we're also talking about employment legislation and potential constructive dismissal, because if you are not happy to wear a mask and they're not happy for you not to wear a mask and you get the sack, then you may be able to sue for unfair dismissal, standing on your rights under the Equality Act and Disability Act and Human Rights Act and European Convention on Human Rights. So there's all kinds of things you could be standing on. So the other part of this would be Disability Act compliance, which I've already kind of mentioned, GDPR and data protection 2018 compliance, Human Rights Act compliance, I've already mentioned, also compliance with the Nuremberg Code, Article 6.1, which is the right to refuse medical intervention, and wearing a mask is known as an NPI, a non-pharmaceutical intervention, because some people may think, oh, it's just like wearing a balaclava, it's just like wearing a scarf. Well, it isn't, because most masks contain microfibers that after prolonged use end up stuck all around your mouth and are inhaled into the lungs. So that's a medical intervention. So the right to refuse a medical intervention without disadvantages is conveyed by the Nuremberg Code. The last compliance that you would insist on in your letter of conditional acceptance is compliance with Universal Declaration of Bioethics and Human Rights, UDBHR 2005, Article 6, fully informed, freely given individual consent is required for medical intervention. You will also add a request to, or an insistence that you will only assent or consent to wearing a mask provided that a responsible person or your employer, if it's not a service provider, will sign a private and personal indemnity guaranteeing that that they will be personally and privately liable to pay up to £500,000 or £1 million in their private capacity for any harm, loss, or death caused to yourself, or if it's your son or daughter, you could be writing on to a school on behalf of your son or daughter. As a result, or father or mother, if you're writing to a care home, as a result of your coerced compliance. So let's see how this works in practice. We'll now take a look at the letter itself. And you will see that it says, I agree to comply with your requirement to wear a face covering or mask while fulfilling my obligations under the employment contract, or to gain access to the requested service, depends on the situation, on strict condition that you answer in the affirmative each and every one of the questions below, and B, you are prepared upon unlimited personal liability in your private capacity to accept responsibility to indemnify me or my estate for an amount not exceeding £1 million, or whichever amount you deem to be appropriate, for any financial loss, psychological or physical harm caused to me as a result of submitting to the repeated and prolonged wearing of a mask or face covering in honest reliance upon your affirmative answers to said questions. Okay, well, that's a bit of a mouthful, but it's not the most important part of this letter. It's really the questions that are the operative part. So let's look at the questions. Question 1, has the wearing of a surgical mask or non-surgical face covering as a protective medical procedure ever been proven effective to prevent transmission of any viral pathogen, taking into account the microscopic size of viral particles and the ease with which they are known to pass through materials of all kinds? Question 2, do you disagree with manufacturers who put on the packaging of medical masks do not protect against viruses? Question 3, are you satisfied beyond reasonable doubt that the wearing of a mask for prolonged and repeated periods of time is a safe medical intervention and will not cause permanent brain injury from oxygen depletion, which is hypoxia, circulatory disease, or even death from carbon dioxide toxicity, which is hypercapnia, and pleurisy or similar lung infections from the bacteria that are known to collect on the mask material and be introduced into the lungs upon inhalation? Question 4, do you agree that the World Health Organization are on record as stating that the wearing of masks is not an effective or recommended method of disease prevention? Question 5, do you accept that as a medical intervention, the wearing of masks requires the freely given consent of the individual pursuant to Article 6, UDBHR, which is Universal Declaration of Bioethics and Human Rights? Do you assert, question 6, do you assert that the insistence on mask wearing as a precondition for access to employment or service, if it's a flight company or train company, for example, travel company, is not an actual or potential breach of fundamental human rights under European Convention of Human Rights, Human Rights Act 1998, Equality Act 2010, or Disability Act 2010? Question 7, do you agree that the wearing of a surgical mask or non-surgical face covering is a medical intervention which I am free to refuse according to Nuremberg principles without disadvantage? For those that have watched part 1, you'll see that that was Article 6.1 to be precise. Now, question 8, do you have in your possession or control an independently conducted health and safety evaluation and/or equality impact assessment to support your position on legal and medical grounds with regard to the mandated wearing of masks or face coverings? Question 9, are you prepared to set out your precise reasons upon independent evidence for your affirmative answers to questions 1, 2, 3, 6, and 8? Question 10, do you understand that concealment of data and blocking or willful refusal to provide data or information relating to our personal data is a criminal offence pursuant Data Protection Act 2018, section 173, subsection 3. Now, the power of this conditional acceptance is unquestionable, because as you would have worked out, if they can answer it's extremely unlikely that they can answer yes to all 10 questions. And if they do, there's a trap in questions 1, 2, 3, 6, and 8. They have to justify their answers to their affirmative answers to those questions. If they deliberately mislead you, then they are committing a criminal offense under data protection. And if they deliberately conceal information, then again, it's a criminal offense. These conditional letters are already working. I can guarantee you that. A dentist, someone was asked, in fact, they're working for tests, but there's no reason why this shouldn't be as powerful. In fact, there's every reason that it will be, because this template is something that I have put together with the people's doctor. If I'm the people's lawyer, she's the people's doctor. Her identity is going to remain a secret for now. But we're working on this together, and they are powerful letters. I hope that's helped. Please look around. If you can't find an actual physical template, you'll find it on the website. It should be up and running soon. That's the it's peopleslawyeruk.com, and on the People's Lawyer public channel on Telegram. Thank you for tuning in. We hope that's been of value to you. Stay tuned for more installments of Combating Medical Tyranny. Thank you, and see you soon from the People's Lawyer.